Greetings, everyone, and welcome to our third installment of our professional development on board relations. I'm Mike Kazak, and I'll be walking us through this week's topic, which is agenda building, and then giving a little update on our professional development calendar for the remainder of the year. This is the professional development calendar, as previously seen in the first session. This week we were supposed to have Finance 201 as presented by our regional finance directors. However, since the development of the PMOs is still underway, it was decided to hold off until those are in place. So we look forward to hearing from our finance directors here in the future. So what do we have on track for us today? Well, by the end of today's session, I hope to be able to provide a framework for your board agenda and how to catalog the various actions taken by your board. As always, all videos and documents can be found on the Board and Partner Relations Yammer site. If you need new invites or don't feel that you have access, please don't hesitate to contact me. Also, for those of you heads of school who do not currently have boards, I would encourage you to listen and participate this Friday on some of the questions. Never know, with changes to heads of school, upward mobility, you may find yourself either supervising a school that has boards or, again, have a school that is governed by a board themselves. As always, with the information and documents that are provided, please use it as a reference, and however, check with your regional vice president before you implement. So let's break down the various parts of a board agenda. For the purpose of this demonstration and utilizing some sample board agenda templates, this particular one is used in the Western region by a few schools. They seem to have served us well, so I want to present those to you today. In the first introductory page, we find instructions to the general public. What you see highlighted in yellow are areas where it can be personalized for the individual academies. It is important to note that in public school agendas, they are governed by the open meeting laws. In almost all cases, what exhibits are provided to board members must also be available to the general public at the meeting or upon request. This next page is a continuance of the first instructions, which discuss oral communications and opportunity for presentations by the general public. Once again, all of this will be provided, documentation will be provided on the Yammer page. So let's now move into the heart of the agenda, which we will see various sections. In this particular example I'm showing you today, we will recognize 7 of them. The first part is identified as the preliminary or presentation for the meeting. It has an order, a call to order to identify which board members are present and absent. As you can note, there is a part for term, and that signifies usually the end of a member's term, depending on your structure. I find that very useful. Board members find it very useful so that they recognize when their term is set to expire, and it can also show the general public members who have been with the board for a certain number of years. And also, if you take a look at the in and out, it's also important to note who has come in to the board meeting late, just in case a question arises as to whether the board member was present for a particular action. It's also important to note that a quorum exists based upon your state's open meeting laws and board bylaws. It is possible for a meeting to start with a quorum. However, because of the early exit of a board member during the meeting, it could result in a non-quorum, and therefore any action must not be taken. While information can still be provided and presentation given, no deliberance or action can usually take place. Also, in most public school board meetings, it is customary and in some cases required that a flag salute take place. This can be easily done as a pledge of allegiance. This next section is called communications, where oral communications, public comments, and presentations are presented to the board. It can also be a time where the school board recognizes staff, students, or individuals who have benefited the school. Usually the first official action for the governing board is to approve the previous board minutes. As you can see by this outline, members are listed in the areas provided for the motion and vote. It is important to understand your state's open meeting laws here. Some states require a polling of board members for their vote or the use of simultaneous electronic means. It is always a good idea to inquire if a board member abstains regardless for a particular vote. In some cases, board members will identify a conflict of interest and therefore need to abstain from voting. In some states, they must declare the reason, and in some others, they do not. The voting structure allows for the secretary to the board, not the board secretary. That's an officer of the board. And in many cases, the secretary to the board is the person who takes down the minutes and the voting record. And in large part, many times, that's the head of school. While some schools can use services that create minutes from a recording, it becomes very important to ensure the accuracy of action taken by the board and in their voting. Moving into this section is the consent agenda item. Some schools may take advantage of this as they are routine matters of business that don't really require discussion. If for some reason discussion is needed to take place, then it is customary that this be moved into the next section under scheduled for action. This next section, which is scheduled for action, is where policies are created based upon board action. Certain states require that action have a component of a reading of the policy, one reading, prior to an official vote. It's a provision. There's also a provision for public comments, board discussion, and board action by vote. This order is determined by the open meeting laws, and in some cases, rules of order, as in the case of Robert's Rules of Orders. In this particular template, I've identified 4 categories. A being business, B instruction and curriculum, C personnel, and D pupil services. So let's take a look at the highlighted terms at the top. I've attempted to provide a catalog for the various actions that a board may take. Under action catalog, you may see Roman numerals 3, 4, and 5. This indicates the section of the agenda where the board report, which is an item scheduled for action, and the date. If an item is tabled, usually it will take on a new board number in a subsequent meeting. Towards the end, I'm also going to provide a proposal document which coincides with each of these actions in the categories. I will also be providing an actual board packet that I used as head of school for Nevada Virtual Academy to give you some reference point. If you will also note, I put under the voting templates under each one of these action items. It's not necessarily for the general public or notice. However, it does allow for board members and staff to follow along with the vote and keep a reference copy as they approve the minutes in the following meeting. Moving into the last sections, scheduled for information are usually considered reports, updates outside of the head of school's report. This is a good location for the report by the school finance manager and marketing and enrollment manager. The next section is the non-meeting or closed meeting session of the board meeting. Again, in certain states, a legal justification or statutory requirement must accompany a reason for a non-meeting. Also here is where student disciplinary action or personnel action takes place. And that would be more disciplinary, termination, those kinds of things, where privacy is at utmost importance. This is also where board attorney can consult with the board under attorney-client privilege. As K-12 employees, it is recommended that you check with your supervisor, your regional vice president, and your K-12 attorney to whether you should attend this part of the session. Under most open meeting laws, the board may deliberate or discuss any action that would require the board to come out of that closed session into an open meeting to vote. Routinely, if it is personnel or student related, a reference number is substituted in place of the name when they come out of the closed session, so that, again, privacy is maintained. The final section, or closing procedures, public comment, may also be heard in this, and it's a good opportunity for the board to discuss future agenda items or things they would like to see. Since it is under closing procedures, deliberation shouldn't take place. And then after that, it's the adjournment. Previously we discussed a proposal document. This is an example of one. This template it provides what is being proposed, a background or rationale for the proposed action item, what budget implications there are, and the recommendations by the staff. Any and all exhibits or documentation can follow this proposal sheet. It helps the board members to understand what is being placed in front of them for action, rather than a quote, what is this and why are we doing it comment, which we've had in the past. It is also helpful to save this document and exhibits when you send them electronically under the same board catalog system. It's easy for your board members who are not present and attending electronically to find the items. The next document is an example of cataloging the various policies approved by the board. I've purposely provided a different cataloging system in order for you to see some variation in the categories. It is vitally important, however, that a system be put in place so that any changes to the board membership or school leadership, whoever is coming in, they can access policies quickly and with little effort in interpreting the content. So let's talk a little bit about who is the owner of the agenda. In most cases, the president of the board is elected and sets the agenda. And as discussed last week, the head of school being staffed to the board, that person, usually head of school, can assist in the development. There are some exceptions. In our first session a few weeks ago, we discussed action items that boards may take during the calendar year. It is very important the head of school assists the board in the absence of the school attorney in upholding the bylaws and the open meeting laws. There have been more than one occasion where I've had to tactfully remind my board of some procedural issues. This is done to safeguard the school and ensure the proper conduct of the board meeting. So in our concluding slide, I wish to point out some highlights and a few reviews of what we discussed today that will assist you in working with your board and putting forth a good agenda, and to the extent possible, a smooth riding board meeting. Start the meeting and end the meeting on time as much as possible. Sometimes you're at the mercy of the board chair's time frame. If possible, work with the board chair on time management. Next, always be professional. We have wonderful leaders at K-12, but also it's important to maintain proper decorum to the extent possible. I've made it a practice to always use proper honorific titles such as Mr., Ms., or Doctor when responding or talking with board members during the board meeting. It maintains respect for the board and a presentation of procedural and professionalism to those who are in attendance. Next, most of our boards use rules of order and conduct themselves in accordance with the open meeting laws. You should become familiar with them in order to assist the board in staying compliant with the law. In the next section, introduce your presenters and provide them with the expectations your board has ahead of time. Ensure they stick to the time frame. If they're giving a 5-minute presentation, ensure that they give that 5-minute presentation and allow for the board to ask questions. Acknowledge your invited guests and new staff members that are present, and those employees who are not officially voted on by the board. If those folks, such as other K-12 employees, have been hired, provide the board with their resume or vita, and it would be very helpful to have them speak to the board about their position and their excitement for working with the school. I have found that boards enjoy presentations, especially those by students and staff. It helps them to remain more connected to the school atmosphere. This is especially true in most of our meetings that are virtual. Next, be prepared for your closed session. They are closed for a reason, which is to maintain confidentiality. It's always proper to ensure that access in moving into another Blackboard room or using a different call-in number is provided to the board ahead of time via email, or via email is the best, or by personal contact. At the conclusion of the board meeting, certain actions or policies may have been approved. It's very beneficial to ensure that all staff, families, and students are aware of those new policies. Now let's take a look at the board meeting has ended. And now you've just had a big sigh of relief, because now you've got some time before the next board meeting. Well, my suggestion is that when the board meeting ends, the preparation for the new board meeting begins immediately. Have the suggested items for the next board meeting that were discussed at the present board meeting ready, and information to be shared with the board chair with respect to setting the agenda. And schedule that out, within short order. Some boards meet monthly. It would be very appropriate to meet with the board chair a couple of weeks in advance of the next board meeting to plan out the agenda and do some pre-planning. That all takes place immediately after the board meeting ends. Set a date with the board chair and stick to that so that you're prepared for the next meeting. Well, we've come to the end of our session today. I've really enjoyed planning and documenting these things and providing them to you. I really do enjoy board agenda building, and I'm here to assist you if you have any questions or comments. Again, as always, please check with your regional vice president on any changes you may incorporate from our session today into what you currently do. We will discuss this session at our Friday weekly head of school meeting. So I would ask that you please come ready to ask questions, provide comments, or to share your best practices with the group. We will have a list of thought-provoking questions that we can discuss at that time. I thank you, and I wish you a very productive and enjoyable remainder of your week. Thank you very much.